Thank you. Can I start off by saying I am not a nationalist. I'm not even sure what that term means, to be quite honest with you, because it's one that's bandied about quite a lot, usually by the other side, to denigrate and make toxic the movement for Scottish independence. So when people use it, they say, oh, you're nothing but a nationalist. I have to say, well, what do you mean by that? If by that you think that after independence I want to round up every English person in Scotland and shoot them, no. If by that I think Scottish decisions should be made in Scotland, that Scottish people should be able to control their own economy, their own political decisions, their own defence decisions, their own foreign policy, their own welfare decisions, then aye. And we actually have to start probing what is meant by nationalism. This isn't a nationalist movement. This is a movement for self-determination. Scottish nationalism, as we understand it, is bound up with that one thing, the right of the Scottish people to make their own decisions. Because what we are facing, in reality, is a nationalist movement. That's what the Better Together campaign is. It's British nationalism. So if Scottish nationalism is about the right to determine our own affairs, let's look at what British nationalism is. At the moment, you've got Home Office vans driving around England saying, immigrants go home. Essentially, that's the message they're saying. Have you ever considered leaving? Have you thought about the fact that we might not want you here? So if you want to talk about parochialism, if you want to talk about insularity, if you want to talk about nationalism, there's a good place to start. All three of the main Westminster parties, 4 if you count UKIP, come draped in the Union Jack. They see that as a vote winner. There's no critique of British nationalism in any of those parties. And what we understand by that, essentially, what British culture essentially is, it's a substitute for the culture and the traditions of the British ruling class, the monarchy, the House of Lords, unelected privilege, the entrenching of the class system, a nationalism which excludes almost everybody in Britain. That's what we are fighting against. The Better Together campaign is about the right of the elites to continue to rule Britain. Because what they're sensing here is a rebellion. That's what this is. A democratic, peaceful rebellion, but a rebellion nonetheless. And it has to be put down. The entire force of the British state is coming to bear on this movement. The political class, the economic class, the media class. They're baffled as to why this has even happened. They don't even think this is a discussion that should be had. I was debating against Ian Gray, the former Labour leader, in a school in Edinburgh last year. And he was saying, essentially, there's so many other things in Scotland that we could be discussing. There's all these other issues that we could be looking at. And we're looking at the Constitution. Essentially what he's saying is, why are we even having this debate? Why are we even having a debate about whether or no Scots should rule themselves? This is a waste of time. But unfortunately for them, this debate is happening. They can't shut it down. Because at every single town, that map that Mike put up earlier, that is absolutely accurate. Myself, Carolyn, Mike, we're doing this kind of stuff almost every night of the week, all over the country. This might or might not be the first event like this that you've attended, I don't know. But every single Scottish town, community centres and town halls are packed with people thirsty for politics, who are debating all these ideas about where Scotland could go, about what Scotland's relationship to the British state is. Every night of the week. This is a grassroots movement, the like of which Scotland has never seen. This is the most powerful political thing I have ever been involved in, that you've ever been involved in. The lights are going on everywhere. And a yes vote will take us over the tipping point into creating a country that we can be proud of. If 51% of the people in this country vote yes, that's 51% of the people whose consciousness has been raised, whose eyes are open, who've thought their way through the layers of propaganda, who can't ever have their eyes closed again, and they will demand a better country. So whatever government is ruling Scotland after 2016, whether it's SNP or Labour or whoever, if they start to mimic the policies that we've rejected, they'll be gone, because we'll no stand for it. None of us are doing all of this just so we can write a blank cheque to the SNP and just say, right, we've won you the yes vote, do what the hell you like. That's not going to happen. The momentum will build and build and build, and Scotland will become the progressive socialist country that I want to see. And then this is what will happen. The English, who've been told that they've been subsidising us, it's not their fault they believe that. That's what the political and media class are telling them. They're propping us up. Scotland would fall apart if it wasn't for the subsidies they're getting for London. We know that not to be true. They'll see us thriving. They'll see us prospering. They'll see us protecting the NHS, protecting the welfare state, building council houses again, reindustrialising the nation through green energy, using the oil reserves to actually build the country. They see us doing this, and they'll say, wait a minute, we Scotland, who we were supporting all the years, they're managing to go off in that direction. We're taking a hammering. Westminster, what's going on here? And then their lights will go on as well. Because he'll have the illustration of a country right on their doorstep that is doing it properly. They'll not have to even look to Scandinavia. We'll be right there. They'll be up visiting. We'll be doing visiting them. We'll be telling them about the revolution that's happening in Scotland, and they'll want it. So Scottish independence will not just change Scotland, it will change the whole of the British Isles. That's exactly what's going to happen. If we vote no, all these lights that are going on over the country, this groundswell, gone. Because a no vote is not going to embolden the British left. It's going to strengthen the right. It's going to strengthen the same elite conservative forces that we're fighting against now. Now, it's unfortunate that there are people in the left who are still holding on to the idea that you can't divide the British working class, you can't promote nationalism, it's a regressive ideology, it's anti-socialist. Well-meaning, but misguided. For so many reasons. One, who's going to take the credit for defeating Scottish independence? It's not going to be Labour. Scottish Labour will have done all the groundwork. They're the ones getting their hands dirty. Cameron will turn around to the English electorate and say, I defeated Alex Salmond. Hasn't he lifted a finger? But they'll believe him. Because they're not seeing what's happening in Scotland. They're not seeing Scottish Labour out there on the TV debates every night of the week trying to defend the union. They'll think Cameron done it, giving him a nice election boost just before 2015. It's not going to make the working class any stronger if Scotland votes no. The idea that there can be no solidarity among working people in Britain because Scotland's one country and England's another country doesn't hold any water in the first place. The way that they say, oh, Scotland don't go, again, well-meaning. It's nice when they do that, although David Bowie didn't say please. But this idea that there's going to be, like in Game of Thrones, a giant wall of ice between Scotland and England that you can't penetrate after independence, it will still take you exactly the same time to get on a train and travel between Glasgow and Liverpool after independence as it does now. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to float off into the North Sea. We'll still have solidarity with working class people in England. When we were fighting the poll tax up here, and remember it was introduced a year early, we were the lab rats for that little piece of policy, but we fought it up here. And then when it was introduced in England, we could tell them the ways in which we'd fought it. We could share techniques. We could share strategies. And that's why successfully that brought down the Thatcher government. That didn't need Westminster rule to validate it. They didn't rubber stamp it. It didn't need a constitutional political union to say workers in Scotland and workers in England are now legally allowed to fight against the poll tax. We just did it. It happened organically, naturally. That's what solidarity is. The miners' strike, miners in Fife and miners in Yorkshire, didn't need Westminster to say, right, okay, we'll allow you to have a meeting so you can discuss how you're going to defeat us. It just happened. And it'll still happen. And I despair when I hear the Unionist left saying, oh, well, Scottish independence is going to drive a wedge through people in Scotland and England. Because all I hear them say is, the revolution will be led by the English left or not at all. And all I hear them saying is, actually, whatever happens in the Republic of Ireland, I didn't care about, because we're not in a political union with them. It's a nonsense. Your granny in Manchester isn't going to phone you up and say, that's it, you voted no, I didn't love you anymore. Beat it. They're right when they say that the bonds are strong. And because those bonds are strong, they will survive independence. So we have to think about what's going to happen if we vote no. This exciting, powerful uprising will be gone, snuffed out for a generation. And I didn't want this to be another glorious Scottish defeat. We've seen too many of them. I didn't want another Ali MacLeod's 1978 World Cup campaign. You know what I mean? We've got an open goal. Didn't sky it out of the bar. Tap it in. That's all we need to do. This isn't nationalism, it's normalisation. What we're fighting for here is to make Scotland normal, to make Scotland like every other country in the world. If every country in the world is capable of making their own political and economic decisions, so are we. You go to Sweden and ask them if they want their political decisions made in Finland, or go to the United States and say, how about all your economic policy being set by Canada? Or go to Australia and say, would you like your foreign policy to be dictated in New Zealand? They'd think you're mad. But we've accepted that somehow as normality because we've grown up inside it. We just think, well, that's how it is. That's how it's been. Let's just get on with it. Well, that's not how it's been. And that's not how it has to stay. It's a simple political arrangement that can be undone. Because this union does not benefit us. It will not continue to benefit us. We've got the power to transform this country for the inside. Who cares what Alex Salmond says? I mean, really? It's a mechanism. The SNP are a mechanism for unleashing the aspirations of the Scottish people. Now, I don't think Alex Salmond's the enemy, but he's not the be-all and end-all. They try to make it all about him, because if they can defeat Alex Salmond, they can defeat independence. This is about us. It's about me and you and your family and your community and your friends taking control of their lives. We can do better than what we've got to now. And we will. Thank you.